friends, welcome back to this channel. Today I thought I would do a tag video. If you're new here, hi, my name is Lillian. I really like to talk about books and reading, and if you enjoy this video today, feel free to subscribe. The tag that I wanted to do today is called the Last 5 Years tag. This was created by my friend Grace over at Books and Cooks. I will link her channel and the original video in the doobly-doo below. And this tag essentially has you look back at the last 5 years of reading that you have done, or at least a slice of time of the last 5 years of your reading. So we'll be looking back at some of the books that I read in the last 5 years before I had my booktube channel. So I'll get to talk to you a little bit about some of those. So without further ado, let's get into the tag. The first question is, what books did you read each year for the past 5 years this month? So I'm currently filming this in the month of February, so I'm going to look back from 2018 to 2022, each of the Februaries of those years, and see what I was reading those months and talk to you about it. I have my handy dandy little notebook here with all of the books listed, so I will read off some of the titles to you. In February 2018, I read a total of 9 books. Let's see, I read 3 Parts Dead by Max Gladstone, Agatha H. and the Airship City by Phil Foglio, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, Inuyasha Volume 1 by Rumiko Takayashi, the Ceremony Zines that Sophie Carlin put out, so Ceremony Issue 1, 2, and 3, as well as her short novella, I guess you'll call it a novella, Fox for a Dream Tale. And then also Kay Nielsen, East of the Sun, West of the Moon, edited by Noelle Danielle, which is a book of Norwegian, Scandinavian folktales and fairy tales that were gorgeously illustrated by the artist Kay Nielsen back in the early 20th century. I will pop some images up here. Really breathtaking book. And then let's see, for February 2019, I actually read 0 books. That was the month, I think, that I moved to Vermont. So I was in the process of moving and just getting everything situated and settled. So I read no books that month, but I also will note that I read 16 books in the month of January previous to that year. So I may have also just burned out a little bit with how many books that I read the month previously and just needed a break. In February of 2020, which is just wild to look back at now, just life was very different then. I read a total of 7 books, first being The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill. That was a DNF for me. I'm probably going to butcher this title, I apologize. Unter Zakan, which was a graphic novel by Leila Corman. Swan, poems by Mary Oliver. Blue is the Warmest Color by Jewel Morrow. It's a famous graphic novel. The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. Kitchen Table Tarot by Melissa Sinova, and Kushiel's Dart by Jacqueline Carey. Then in February of 2021, I read a total of 5 books, starting with Child of the Dream, a memoir of 1963 by Sharon Robinson. This is a really cool middle grade memoir of Sharon Robinson, who is the daughter of Jackie Robinson, and sort of her looking back on her time as probably a middle-aged child, probably as a middle grade aged child, middle school time period, and just her experience and what her family did in the civil rights movement, what her thoughts were at that age. It was a really great middle grade memoir, which I don't think I'd ever encountered before. Next was American Street by Imi Zeboy, Beloved by Toni Morrison, Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde, which I implore everyone to read if you haven't already, as well as Saving Savannah by Tonya Bolden. That was a really great, I guess I call it, it's in between like middle grade and YA historical fiction novel. That was incredible. And then in February of last year, 2022, I read quite a few books. I read a total of 14 books. I think this was around the time that I was really starting to get into graphic novels. It's when I really started to get into romance. I kind of went a little bit hog wild with the number of romance books that I tried out this month. But as far as the books that I read volumes 4 through 6 of Sweet Tooth by Jeff Lemire, My Beautiful Enemy by Sherry Thomas, How to Disgrace a Lady by Bronwyn Scott, would not recommend that one, Die Volume 3 by Kieran Gillen, which, if you aren't familiar, is a graphic novel series that I would kind of describe as an adult Jumanji. Really great. Any Duchess Will Do by Tessa Dare, Lord Dashwood Missed Out by Tessa Dare, A Week to Be Wicked by Tessa Dare, I was dipping my foot into historical romance genre. The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, incredible book. Bitter Root, Volume 3 by David F. Walker, Chuck Brown. At the Stroke of Midnight by Tara Sivek. The Missing of Claire de Lune by Christelle Dabeau. And last but not least, Dreamwork by Mary Oliver, which is at the moment my favorite poetry collection of all time. When looking back at the books I read in February of 2022, I have, I guess, some fond memories. It was a time where I was really sort of expanding what I was reading and really getting into graphic novels. I sort of finally plunged into the romance genre and was enjoying myself. It was definitely what I needed at the time. I was very stressed out at work. I just needed a bit of an escape, and they definitely provided that. I listened to a lot of these on audiobook on my commute to and from work. I was commuting about 2 hours a day, so I definitely had time for audiobooks. I also have really fond memories of listening to the series by Christelle Dabeau. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but The Missing of Claire de Lune and the 4 books within that series were all listened to on audiobook on my commute during the first half of 2022. And overall, I really enjoyed that series. Question number 2 is, do you still own any of these books? And the answer is, the majority of the books that I read, I guess in the past 5 Februaries, were library books actually, so I don't own a good number of them. Some of them I did own and donated them to either friends, thrift stores, local used bookstores, but I did keep around 5 of these books, and that would be Dreamwork by Mary Oliver, Beloved by Toni Morrison, Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and East of the Sun, West of the Moon, which is a great segue into the next question, which is, would you reread any of these books and why? So all of the books that I kept that I just mentioned, I definitely would like to reread. It's one of the reasons that I kept them. There are times where I will pull East of the Sun, West of the Moon off of the shelf and just flick through the images for inspiration. They are really gorgeous. Beloved is definitely one that I would like to revisit on audiobook. Dreamwork is a poetry collection that I often go back to and just flick through for a random poem when I need just a bit of serotonin. And Sister Outsider and The Bell Jar are both 2 favorite books of mine that I just would like to revisit in the future. And Grace, I hope you don't mind, I added a part 2 to that question that I thought might be relevant. And so the part 2 that I'm going to add is, if some of these books were library books or they were books that you borrowed from friends, could you see yourself going out and purchasing a copy for yourself to reread again in the future? I definitely had a few of those, and I thought that I would share. So I could definitely see myself in the future, after my no-buy year, going out and getting copies of The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Really loved that book and would like to reread it. Saving Savannah by Tonya Bolden. Wonderful young adult, middle grade historical fiction novel. Swan Poems by Mary Oliver. I'm looking to collect all of Mary Oliver's work at some point, as well as Die Volume 3 by Kieran Gillen. I would like to collect all of the volumes in the Die series. I really enjoy it. And then the 4th and final question in this tag is, how has your reading changed over time? So I had a really fun time looking back at all of these Februaries for the past 5 years and just reflecting on where I was emotionally, mentally, who I was as a person, who I was as a reader. I think one of the things that definitely came to mind when I was looking back over these last 5 years was I've definitely gotten better at choosing books that I'm more likely to enjoy and are more likely to stay with me, their stories in the long term. I started to try some new genres, mainly romance and graphic novels, that I didn't think that I would get into in the past, as well as revisiting middle grade as an adult and really enjoying that. And I think a lot of that boils down to just being more in touch with myself, understanding who I am, what I like, and also getting to a point in my life where I've kind of just mentally said, fuck it. When I was younger, I used to be so self-conscious about so many different things, reading included, and even though I was a big reader, I was always sort of anxiously aware or thinking about what other people thought what I was reading, when in reality they probably didn't care. Was I reading the new popular YA fantasy book that everyone was raving about? Was I reading a quote-unquote impressive book for my age? Versus just reading what I truly wanted to or was truly drawn to. But I will also say that being in touch with what I truly want and am drawn to is something that I haven't really been able to grasp and understand fully until I've gotten to my 20s instead of my teenage years. If you told me 5-10 years ago that I was reading romance, that I was enjoying it, that I was openly seeking it and openly talking about it, I wouldn't have believed you. But today, 27-year-old me would look back and say, I wish I started reading romance sooner. It's a genre that I've really come to enjoy. And I think a lot of that boils down to the lesson that I've sort of learned about being able to enjoy things without shame or self-criticism, and that's for me come with time, age, self-reflection, and definitely letting go of some of the societal and internal pressures that I have put on myself in reference to books, but also with many other things in my life. As I've gotten older, I think I've truly been able to step into the mindset of read what you want, read what makes you happy, and also that can be a wide variety of things. Personally, I really like reading from a wide variety of genres and topics, and I no longer feel like I have to fit myself into a specific box or category as a reader. If it sounds interesting to me, I will add it to my TBR and not really care. So to actually answer this question, I would say I'm reading much more openly and freely than I have in the past several years. I'm leaning into genres that I haven't tried before and being more willing and open to try new genres. I'm reading more books that genuinely interest me as a result of being more in touch with myself and understanding what it is I enjoy as a reader, and as a result I end up enjoying more of the books that I read. Overall, I'd say I'm a much more fulfilled reader than I was even 5 years ago. Which has led me to being a much more consistent reader. If you would like to hear a little bit more about the evolution of my reading taste, I will link the evolution of a reader tag that I did up in the cards. I think it's on this side, fingers crossed, where I talk about the evolution of my reading taste from early childhood to present day. But I definitely wanted to thank Grace for creating this tag. I had a lot of fun doing it. For me, it was a really fun way to look back and reflect on myself, various snapshots of myself as a reader over the past 5 years, reminding myself how far I've come as a reader and as a person. If you're watching this video and you yourself would like to do this tag, feel free to do it. I tag you. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. That helps. I do my best to post videos on Wednesdays and Saturdays, so if you would like, feel free to subscribe to see more from me. Thank you so much for watching, friends. I hope you all are doing well and staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video.